The Oval Office stood witness to a clash of personalities and ideologies. This room, steeped in history, has seen countless pivotal moments, but today was different. The air was thick with anticipation and uncertainty. On February 28, 2025, President Trump hosted Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. The world watched as these two leaders, representing nations with a complex and intertwined history, came together. The meeting was supposed to reaffirm the alliance between the two nations. It was meant to be a symbol of unity and mutual support, a testament to the strength of their partnership in the face of global challenges. Instead, it became a public display of discord. Tensions were high. The discussions quickly turned into a heated debate, with both leaders standing firm on their positions, unwilling to compromise. The future of Ukraine, and perhaps the world, hung in the balance. The stakes were not just political, but deeply personal for many, as the conflict in Ukraine had far-reaching consequences. The meeting was a closely watched event. Journalists from around the globe gathered, eager to capture every moment, every word exchanged between the two leaders. The eyes of the world were on Washington. News outlets provided live coverage, analysts speculated on the outcomes, and citizens from both nations held their breath. Everyone wanted to know, would these two leaders find common ground? Could they bridge their differences and work towards a common goal, or would their meeting end in further division? Or would their differences drive a wedge between them? The possibility of a fractured alliance loomed large, casting a shadow over the proceedings. The stakes were incredibly high. The outcome of this meeting could shape the future of international relations, influence global policies, and determine the fate of countless lives. The world waited with bated breath. President Trump, known for his blunt style, did not hold back. He accused President Zelenskyy of gambling with millions of lives. Trump argued that Zelenskyy's pursuit of further military aid risked escalating the conflict into a global war. Zelenskyy, however, stood firm. He pleaded for continued American support. He argued that Ukraine was fighting for its survival against Russian aggression. Zelenskyy reminded Trump that the conflict had already claimed countless lives. The Ukrainian president insisted that surrendering to Russia was not an option. He needed more than just words of support. He needed concrete military assistance. Zelenskyy's visit was not just about securing more weapons. He was on a mission to solidify Ukraine's position on the global stage. The stakes were high, and the Ukrainian leader knew that his country's future depended on the support of powerful allies. He was also seeking security guarantees from the United States. These guarantees were not just about military aid, but also about political and economic support. Zelenskyy emphasized the importance of a united front against aggression. He wanted assurances that America would stand by Ukraine in the long term. This was crucial for Ukraine's morale and strategic planning. The Ukrainian president was acutely aware that without long-term commitments, his country could be left vulnerable. He argued that Ukraine's security was essential to the stability of Europe and the wider world. Zelenskyy pointed out that a secure Ukraine would act as a bulwark against further regional instability, which could have far-reaching consequences. Trump, in contrast, pushed for a swift end to the conflict. He believed that prolonged engagement in Ukraine was not in America's best interest. His approach was pragmatic, focusing on immediate results rather than long-term strategies. He urged Zelenskyy to negotiate peace with Russia, even if it meant territorial concessions. Trump argued that a negotiated settlement, though imperfect, would save lives and resources. He saw it as a necessary compromise to end the bloodshed. Trump argued that the United States could not continue to pour resources into a war without end. He stressed the importance of focusing on domestic issues and reallocating resources to other pressing needs within the country. He warned that American support for Ukraine was not limitless. Trump emphasized that while the U.S. would continue to support its allies, there had to be a clear endgame. The debate between security and peace remains a complex and contentious issue. The meeting was punctuated by tense exchanges. Trump at one point told Zelenskyy, "You're gambling with World War III." Zelenskyy, visibly frustrated, retorted that the United States, shielded by its geographical location, did not fully grasp the gravity of the situation. He reminded Trump that even oceans could not protect America from the global consequences of a wider conflict. Vice President Vance echoed Trump's sentiments. He criticized Zelenskyy for airing their disagreements in public, calling it disrespectful. The meeting concluded with no concrete agreements, only heightened tensions and a sense of unease. A breach of protocol. Adding to the drama, a reporter from the Russian state-controlled news agency TASS briefly entered the Oval Office. This was a clear breach of protocol. The reporter was not on the approved press list. The incident highlighted the Trump administration's increasingly tight control over media access. Major American news organizations were barred from covering the meeting. This raised concerns about transparency and freedom of the press. The incident fueled criticism that the Trump administration was trying to control the narrative surrounding the meeting and silencing dissenting voices. Controlling the narrative. The TASS incident was not an isolated event. It was a stark reminder of the ongoing struggle between the media and those in power. The incident highlighted the lengths to which some administrations would go to control the narrative and manage public perception. It was part of a broader pattern of the Trump administration restricting media access. This pattern was not just about limiting information, but also about shaping the stories that reached the public. By controlling who could ask questions and what could be asked, the administration aimed to steer the conversation in their favor. Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt had recently announced a new policy. This policy was seen as a direct challenge to the traditional role of the press in holding the government accountable. Leavitt's stern demeanor at the podium underscored the administration's serious intent to enforce these changes. The administration, not the White House Correspondents Association, would now determine which journalists could access the Oval Office. This shift in power dynamics was unprecedented and sent shockwaves through the journalistic community. Many journalists felt that their ability to report freely and fairly was under threat. This move was widely seen as an attempt to sideline critical media outlets. Journalists who were known for their tough questions and critical reporting found themselves increasingly marginalized. The frustration among the press corps was palpable as they struggled to navigate this new landscape. It was a clear departure from long-standing tradition. For decades, the White House press briefings had been a cornerstone of transparency and accountability. The new policy marked a significant shift away from these principles, raising concerns about the future of press freedom in the United States. The Trump administration argued that this was necessary to combat what they perceived as bias in the mainstream media. They claimed that the changes were aimed at ensuring fair and balanced coverage. However, many saw this as an excuse to silence dissenting voices and avoid scrutiny. Critics, however, saw it as an assault on press freedom. They argued that a free press is essential for a healthy democracy, and that these measures were a dangerous step towards authoritarianism. The debate over media access and control continues to be a contentious issue, reflecting broader tensions in society about truth, power, and accountability. A world divided. The fallout from the meeting was immediate and far-reaching. Democrats condemned Trump's handling of the situation. They criticized his rhetoric as reckless and his policies as detrimental to American interests. European leaders, while careful in their public statements, expressed support for Zelenskyy. They emphasized the importance of transatlantic unity in the face of Russian aggression. The meeting highlighted the growing divide within the Western alliance. It underscored the challenges of maintaining a united front against Russia. A troubled history. The Trump-Zelenskyy meeting must be understood in the context of the long and complex history of U.S.-Ukraine relations. The United States has provided billions of dollars in aid to Ukraine since the start of the conflict in 2014. However, this support has not come without conditions. Previous administrations have also pressed Ukraine to address corruption and implement reforms. Trump's approach, however, has been markedly different. His personal affinity for Putin, coupled with his America First worldview, has raised concerns about a shift in U.S. foreign policy. A shift in the balance. The Oval Office clash between Trump and Zelenskyy was more than just a diplomatic incident. It was a stark illustration of the shifting geopolitical landscape. Trump's open skepticism of American support for Ukraine has emboldened Russia. It has also rattled America's European allies. The meeting has left many wondering, what does the future hold for U.S.-Ukraine relations? The world is watching, waiting to see what this latest development in the long saga of international relations will bring. The stakes have never been higher. Drop your comment on how you think this would play out, and please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video for more updates.